Hello, everyone. Today I will be speaking about soft and hard power in American foreign policy. Now, as a start, I will give you a basic definition of power. It is the power is the ability to affect others in order to get to the outcomes that you want, and this can be done in three different ways. We've got coercion and force, payments, promises, agreements, and we've got attraction. Now, the first two are considered hard power. The third one is considered soft power. Now, usually we compare the resources that produce power, and so it's measurable. However, you must keep in mind that the resources do not always give you power. So, power is considered a key concept for international theorists, especially for realists. So, the author believes or considers that a state's power comes from the components of a soft and hard power. And so, when you want to get to something or when you want to achieve a certain goal, you must possess certain resources. So that is why we define power as the possession of certain resources, especially high amounts of resources, such as population, such as territory, such as economic growth, military strength, economic political stability, etc. The writer considers it as holding the high cards in an international poker game because when you put down your high cards, the others are expected to fold their hands for you. And so, in a sense, if you play in a very poor way, you're definitely going to lose. Now, on a traditional scale, power war is considered a very great aspect of power. So it's considered like the ultimate game to prove your power. Starting with an example in Europe's 18th and 17th century, where um, population was a very big major source of power in terms of paying taxes, getting taxes, and in terms of recruitment of infantry or the recruitment of mercenaries, if you want to say. And that is what made France very powerful then. Then came the 19th century with the Industrial Revolution, and that gave a boost for Britain, then Germany. Um, so they were able to have a more advantage because they were able to transport their armies much faster to the places needed, and that gave them a very huge advantage, especially over Russia, who actually, even though Russia had a much higher population and a much bigger army. After that came the nuclear age, where we had the United States and USSR heading each other, and they were the only ones that had intercontinental weapons or missiles, if you want to say. Now, moving on to this, today's foundation of power is shifting away from military force, and there are several causes. I'm going to speak about them. The first one is, ironically, the nuclear weapons destructive capacity. Nuclear weapons proved to be very much destructive, very much costly, and so they were the ones that stopped using them actually. The second one is rise of nationalism. Rise of nationalism means that empires um, were not able to control their citizens anymore. With the rise of nationalism, they couldn't just rule them the way they wanted, and so it's one of the causes. Then we've got the social changes within powers. What does that mean? People's mindsets started to change. They'd stopped thinking the way they did anymore. They didn't want glory anymore. They wanted welfare. They stopped tolerating casualties and wanted just to sit in peace. And that is one of the major changes that is shifting us away from the force, military force. The fourth one is modern democracies. Now, what does that mean? Modern democracies, the need of moral justifications. So, in today's post industrial world, actually, the need of moral justifications to go to war or to use force is a very much important thing, as I said before, because post industrial countries do not tolerate force. Maybe in modern industrialized countries, it is common, it is somehow tolerated like China or India. In weak countries or poor countries, it is still common. However, in post-industrial countries, it is not common at all and it's not tolerated at all. Then we've got the globalization of the economy. The globalization of economy, in our times, great powers, the use of force actually puts at stake your economic objectives. Even then, democratic countries or states consider this before actually doing anything because they still need access to the globalized economy. You know, all over more today, it is much cheaper to develop an economic trade than it is to, invade a country, seize its territory by force. Now, all that does not mean that military force is of no use anymore or of no importance. No, you cannot ignore their role because, for example, non-state actors still exist. They still use force, and so some superpowers are obliged um, to counter-react with force, right? And so another example is other countries need protection from superpowers like East Asian countries. They welcome US troops on their lands as an insurance policy and protection against um, maybe hostile neighbors. So the use of force today or military force, it remains sometimes crucial in certain situations. Now, when we talk about the balance of power, now in the author's point of view, if the US wants to stay strong, it needs to pay more attention to its soft power. How is that? A country usually obtains its goals by making other countries following them and to admire them, if you want to say. So it is very important to have and maintain the asset of attraction, like I spoke in the first uh, slide, which is soft power. Attraction is a very important thing. So countries in like that somehow will be forced to be like you or to change the way you want them to without the need for you to do that. An example of that is parents. Parents usually prefer to raise up their children in the right beliefs and the right morals rather than punishing them. It makes it easier for them to control them or have control over them when they just raise them in the right beliefs. So having an attractive culture, an attractive ideology, attractive institutions is a very strong key asset for power and maintaining power. Um, so both powers eventually are as important. They can reinforce each other. When a country makes its power legitimate, it will encounter, as I said, less counter reinforcement. It will have less resistance, especially if it has an attractive culture, an attractive behavior, an attractive foreign policy as well. That is very important. The author says that if the U.S. needs to maintain its power, um, the good scenario would be to have a balance of power. He also believes that the US's massive power will eventually is what is making things aggressive. It's what's making other countries use force. However, counter arguments believe that many regions in the world also proved stability under hegemony. It's not always a balance of power. Balance of power is not always the idea, ideal idea to have peace. No, because history proved that when you start trying to balance power, you will get chaos, you will get war. However, on the other side, many believe that the US hegemony will lead to coalitions, counter coalitions, in order to limit its power and whatnot. But he believes that this hegemony is this inequality of power is what is making everything stable. It's what's making everything peaceful because history is what recalls that. When the United States and USSR were fighting to balance their power, look, there was much chaos in the world. That is a very actually perfect example. Um, However, as I have in the slide here, the real question is how much or what kind of inequality of power is necessary, and for how long is it necessary to stay in order to keep this balance of power, or this peace or stability in the leading country. Um, if the leading country, the answer is very easy, of course, and it's that if the leading country um, uses its soft power to benefit the others, to benefit other countries, there will be no counter coalitions, or actually, there will be much more time for them to occur. And that is a very logical. However, if the superpower is very arrogant, is using its power, or either soft or hard, in a very bad way, then others will want to escape the hegemony. And so the writer believes that the American positive hegemony will, well, will be present for a while. Will be present for a while. He said that it's more likely to stay because he believes that the United States has a very strategical engagement in such soft power, and so he believes that it is going to stay for a while now. And so, as a conclusion, um, if we continue to evolve in such way today, soft power will become more important than any other power ever existing. And that is a very something that we can see happening today and will probably be our future. Thank you for listening to me. Goodbye.